Joining me today, I have one of the brothers Landreth. I have Dave joining me. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, happy to be here.
For those who might not know listening right now, what style and genre is your music, and how long have you and your brother been doing this?
We have been doing this for about, geez, getting to be 13 years-ish, I'd say. We started the band, give or take, 2010, 11, and we put out our first record in 2013. And we've been touring the world ever since, putting out records and doing our thing. And in terms of genre, usually we land somewhere in the Americana world, Americana adjacent. I've heard things like alt country and roots rock, occasionally blues. Um, we're kind of all over the place, but mostly in that world.
That's amazing. You know, when people often grow up, they will not flee, but leave the house and see their siblings only on special occasions. But you decided to do life with your brother. Does that always pan out? How is that for you guys?
It's it can be pretty funny at times, but honestly, uh, I'm mostly just really grateful that I get to share this with somebody that I care so much about. I have a lot of peers who do this as solo artists or band leaders. I feel like it's increasingly rare to have real bona fide like rock bands where everybody's been in the same band forever and came out of high school like that. That feels more and more rare, and most of my friends are doing this on their own. And there can be this inherent sense of isolation or loneliness in that because you know it's all your risk, all your reward too as a band leader. But you can definitely feel like you're out in the wilderness sometimes, even when you have a band or team, crew, or whatever. Um, so for me, I can't even relate to that because I've just always had Joe in my corner, and good and bad, I've got somebody to turn to, and that's been an incredible blessing.
That's amazing. I love it. So, some people might know, but I would love from your own words what happened recently for the Brothers Landreth from Mark Chipman.
Yeah, what a fun story. Let me tell you all about it. So we have this buddy. His name is Mark, and he's a um, real wonderful music fan. And we've known him for about a decade, and he's become a real fan of the band, and we've become friends. And we've had sort of idly chatted about a sort of this theme where we would find a space to turn into a creative art space with no real sort of definition of what that was necessarily, just that it would, a space somewhere for our band to uh, demo ideas and rehearse uh, and make things ultimately. And as time went on, we talked about some different versions of permutations of that idea. As we were becoming friends and getting to know each other, Joey and I also started our own music company, Birthday Cake, and that started to grow. And one of the first things that Mark suggested was that we move into this office space that is sort of nestled between the two bathrooms on the third floor at the Burton Cummings Theater. So that was our first digs, and we outgrew that pretty quickly. And so this kind of became part two, is this idea that we would move into the space and the band could rehearse, and eventually maybe this would be something that could support sort of creative ventures at large. And through Birthday Cake, we support a ton of Manitoba talent, and then space is always a challenge when it comes to rehearsing or pre-production or doing music videos and things like this. So we just had all these ideas, and it just revolved around a space. So we've been looking at things. We looked at fire halls, we looked at a bunch of different buildings, and um, your listeners will be familiar with Steve Bell. Steve caught wind of this idea, and one of Steve's dear friends and longtime collaborators is a fellow named Jamie Howison, who is a part of this church over here, St. Michael's and All Angels. Um, and he said, "Hey, I actually know of a building that is potentially available." And I think the really fun story about this is that, yeah, we wound up um, being a part of this venture that bought a church. Mark bought a church. But the really cool thing is that it kind of rescued this congregation, and I don't mean rescue like in an overly indulgent way. It's not like, hey, look at us, we rescued a church. It was that this building was up in the air, and they weren't sure if they were going to be able to continue to afford it. The congregation, it's a small congregation, a humble congregation, and this old building comes with old building problems and old building repair costs, and it was just becoming a harder and harder to hold on to the space. And the diocese was talking about putting it up for sale. In steps Mark, and we worked out an arrangement where the church continues to use the space as they have for over 100 years, and they are relieved of the burden of having to worry about how to pay for this building and take care of it, because they've been incredible loving custodians of it for a century. And then we get to come in here and hang out and breathe a little bit of life into it. It's been mostly a quiet building. They do a couple of services throughout the week, Thursdays and Sundays. And now we're in here with the record company doing, supporting the arts and doing our thing. And we're in here with the band rehearsing a couple of weeks and using the space. So we're just here, and we're kind of coexisting, and it's a win-win. We see it as a win-win, and I think the congregation feels the same way. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what's new and exciting in my life, our lives.
Yeah, it's a beautiful collaboration. I love this and how it all came to be. I would love to know what went through you, and I'm going to throw your brother in there as well. What went through your heads when you heard about this generous offer? It's like, hey, here's a brand new space. It's actually quite big, and there's going to be this collaboration, and it'll help everybody out.
Feels very surreal, and feels a bit like a pinch me moment, knowing that we're going to be able to work and do so much cool stuff out of this space, and that we're able to do it in a non-destructive way, where we're kind of stepping into this beautiful historic building, but we're also preserving the culture that has, kept these walls standing for the last 100 years. It just feels really special, and we just feel really, really, really grateful, really lucky.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything and sharing your heart as well. I hope this space it continues to be a blessing to you and Joey and the congregation. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.